last but certainly not least, we have Mayor Larry Rich with us today. Larry has been in education for the last 29 years, assistant principal over at our high school. He started his career as a math and computer programming teacher, and during the last 17 years as the assistant principal at Roseburg High. He has been our mayor for the last 11 years and has his wife today, Alpha, is with us today. So please join me in welcoming Mayor Larry Rich.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for coming out today. I got to tell you, about 5 minutes to 9, I was standing here going, oh no, what happens if we called our party and nobody shows up? So thanks for being here. You didn't let us down. As I reflected back on this process, it's definitely a long process, and I focused back on the very beginning when we started, and there were two issues that I remember the most about. First one had to do with money. There's no money. And I remember when I first came on council, Jack Cooley would give all of us a tour of the downtown fire station, probably in hopes that somebody would come up with an idea of how are we going to come up with some money. But he'd show us the facility, and it was really obvious that it had some problems. He'd even take us down into the Bay Area and let us know that if you bring in so many vehicles, you got to position them different ways, and then when there's a call, you got to move one out to move the other one out. And what do we do to solve it? And as you listen to this, it always comes back to the same thing. Well, thanks, Jack. I know there's a problem. There's no money. That was always our response. And you do get to the point where you feel like saying, yeah, this is an issue that we will probably never be able to figure out. Jim Johnson, as you heard, was our interim city manager. And I still remember the day when he came here and he kind of listened to the problems and he said, there is this possibility, it was just a possibility, that if you change the urban renewal district boundary, that you might be able to have some funding. And of course the rest of us are like, oh really, a little possibility, and this is more than we ever had before. And so we said, well, what's it take? And he says, well, it takes about a year or two to change the boundary. No guarantees here. It could fall apart any point along the way, but there's that possibility if you change the boundary, then you might be able to have some funding. So we said at the council level, let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's change the boundary. And if I remember right, it did take about a year or two to go through the process with the public hearings and so forth. To change that boundary, what he pointed out to us was that up in the northern part of our community where you got Home Depot and Lowe's and Walmart and the airport and so forth, if you just kind of stretch the boundary down, get some of those properties off that district area and move its southern area down here, that if you include the downtown area, then at least if you locate the fire station in the downtown area, you'll have this funding. So we did do that. We changed the district boundary so it included the downtown. We dropped off the northern properties. And then came the question, now you're sure you're going to be able to locate a fire station downtown? The good news was we heard Jack Cooley tell us for many times about the problem downtown with the old fire station, and here's a good location. This was one of them, and he had pointed out at council one time different locations, so we knew that, okay, we can locate down here. The next big problem is, how are you going to purchase the property? And what happened? Nobody wants to sell. And right here were those homes, if you remember that issue, of eminent domain. And at the council level, it's that big fear, oh no, if you tell somebody we're going to come in as government and we're going to move you out, this eminent domain, nobody really appreciates having their property taken away. So the next hurdle we had to overcome is what happens that happens. And as a council, are we ready to move forward? And if that does mean eminent domain, are we willing to take that step? Fortunately for us, everybody was willing to sell. So it went very smoothly. We didn't have problems in that area. And once we got to that point where we had the funding, we had the property, I think at that point, everybody, including those of us that kind of doubted the steps along the way, were confident, hey, this is really going to happen. We put together the committees, as you heard, the committees that went down to the different locations in California, I think in Washington, to look at other fire stations, the pluses and the minuses, and choosing what we wanted in our facility. We had that committee. We had a committee for the design stage to make sure that it fit for the Roseburg area, and we also had a committee to follow through on the construction phase. So it was exciting to see this done, and I think, like I said, when you reflect back at the beginning, it was that real doubt, will we ever get here? But we're here, so this is a great moment to have here for Roseburg. As I look at the positives, I want to point out 4 positives to me about what we have here. And the first one is we have a good-looking building. As you heard Eric talk about it, we get comments a lot from people that drive by and they say, this facility really looks nice. The artwork adds in the great enhancement to this building. So we really have something to be proud of, that we have a facility that really looks nice in our community. The second one that to me is a great positive is the location. And we had heard before that as we grow, you want to make sure that you place a fire station in an area that has easy access to the emergency needs of your community. And it won't be long before Diamond Lake Boulevard does start to grow and expand. And as you can tell from this location, it's easy on Stevens Street and out to Diamond Lake Boulevard. So we're situated in an ideal location. The third positive to me is it meets our needs of the community. And we heard from the committee members that went out to look at the different communities that you want to make sure when you build your facility that the first day you have everybody move in, you don't have it all maxed out. You want to make sure that it meets the needs of today as well as the near future. And that is a plus here because we do have some rooms that are not finished. If you take the tour, you'll see that. And that allows us to expand in the near future. So that's a positive to me that we meet the needs now as well as our near future. And I saved what I consider the best for last. This means a lot to me, and that is the debt on this building. It will be paid off in 10 years. We are not leaving a financial burden to future generations to figure out how to pay for. So to me, one of the greatest positives we have is that this building will be paid off, and it's going to be us that ends up paying it off. We're not pushing it off to another generation to figure it out. So those are the positives that I see out of this building. I do want to say thank you to everybody that had a part. Doesn't matter how big or small it is. Thank you for your time and your efforts in making this thing possible. So thank you very much.